we had primer on the airplane the other week, and then I sprayed most of the airplane with an aluminum enamel, because what I intend to do is do some paint chipping on it. So we're going to use the AK acrylic fluid Worn Effects. And I used an enamel aluminum so that it would be a little tougher, and that when we go to, scrape this off, rub it off, it doesn't rub off our undercoat as well. And the way I'm going to work this out is, so we've got the aluminum first. I'll spray on some Worn Effects. On top of the Worn Effects will go our interior green, and then we'll add more Worn Effects, and then we'll add our top blue color. But I'll scratch away the chipping fluid in between those coats. So from silver to interior green, after the interior green we'll chip away. And when I'm happy with where it's chipped and how it's chipped, then we'll add another layer of the Worn Effects, and then we'll spray our blue top coat on it, and then we'll go back to chipping that again. And that should give us the multi-level layers of paint fade and chipping that I'm hoping to get. I've seen this done a few times in videos. I've never done it myself yet. It's the same as the hairspray product. The product itself may be slightly different, but it works the same way. The chipping fluid's been sprayed on and is dry, and now we're going to add our interior green. Actually, it's like the primer color coat that they would use over the bare metal. That's going to go down over the chipping fluid that we already sprayed, and then we'll chip this. Then we'll add more chipping fluid, and then we'll spray our top coats. It's a medium blue on the top and a gray on the bottom. So this is what we're using. It's the Mr. Color interior green. It's a little bit brighter than how I did the cockpit interior, because I oversprayed just a slight black over the cockpit just to darken it a little bit. All right, I sprayed on the what would have been their primer, the zinc chromate green. And I mainly put it in the areas where I thought there would be the most wear and chipping, so along the line where the wing folds, there may be some chipping there. Obviously, either side of the cockpit with climbing up onto the wing to get into the aircraft. Leading edges of the wings and tail surfaces from salt spray and other wear from the elements. On the bottom, of course, more of the leading edge areas. And then I thought, a lot of these access panels too, so I didn't go quite as heavy in a few spots, but and then where the flaps and the ailerons meet the wing, that might get some wear. On top of the wing again, the panels for the ammunition, the gun ammunition access, so those are hinges at the front. Surely those hinges are going to wear and lose some paint. So, and I didn't do so much on the, well, actually I did. This is the mask cockpit framing. I have the canopy and the windshield that will be the permanent pieces over by the spray booth, and I did spray those, so they will get chipped as well. But so let's get started and start rubbing away some of this. I actually shot a test patch on a plastic spoon, and it works pretty well. It does take some effort to get this stuff to finally start to chip, but when it starts going, it goes pretty well. So let's see, where am I going to start? Let's tell you what. Let's start on these hinges, and you gotta wet it, let it soak in a little bit. Just keep rubbing it with the toothpick, and eventually it will start to wear. In fact, I think I'm already getting there. Yeah. I don't know if you can see that. It's already starting to wear away a little bit, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. This one. And I don't want to rub away too much of the zinc chromate green, because remember, we're also going to coat this with our medium blue. So we want some of that zinc chromate green to show up underneath that as well. So we've got the bare aluminum underneath the zinc chromate, and then we'll have the zinc chromate underneath the intermediate blue when that goes on. So I think this is going to work really, really well. Let me continue to work on this and we'll come back. All right. This is about, I don't know, probably close to 45 minutes worth of work. It's subtle, and I still need to wipe it down, from all the little bits of paint that curled up and dried where they were from scratching with the toothpick. And I went through almost 4 toothpicks trying to get this stuff to come loose. And it's really not that hard. You get a little water on the area you want it to chip, let it sit there for a few moments, and then when you come back with the toothpick and rub at it, it comes off fairly easy. Like I said, it's a little bit subtle, but for this layer, that's really what I want, because I don't want a whole lot of the aluminum showing through. So after I clean this up, I'll go back over it and spray it with more of the chipping fluid, let that dry, and then we'll spray our medium blue on the top and gray on the bottom. And then we'll go through the whole process again, and we'll start scratching away at the areas, and maybe a little bit more of those colors will come off, leaving you with a little bit of the zinc chromate green and the aluminum underneath that, where it's worn quite heavily. All right, so I got to wipe this down, and I still have to do the cowl. It's sprayed. I just haven't done the chipping on it yet. So, but I think this is going to turn out really, really good. That's my hope. I mean, that's what we all hope, right, when we do this stuff, especially when you're doing a new technique to you for the first time. Welcome back, everybody. All right, it's actually been almost 2 weeks now. I don't have all my paint on. I did do the bottom side of the aircraft. So we did the chipping with the green zinc chromate color. Then we sprayed our gray over the bottom of that and did a little chipping as well, so that the zinc chromate comes through, and in a few spots you still get even that bare aluminum showing through. And now I'm masking off so that I can do the top side, which is blue. You can see we've already done the zinc chromate on the top side, and we got some areas where we've scuffed it so that the bare aluminum will show through. I can't tell you how nervous I have been to do this part of it, to have to mask it off, because along the side here, the blue comes down at the trailing edge of the wing and then across, so that the very belly of the fuselage stays in the gray, but the sides become blue, and then it comes back up. No, I take that back. It stays blue all the way to the tail. So the very belly of the fuselage stays gray. The sides of the fuselage become blue, even up on the vertical stab and the rudder. However, the undersides of the horizontal stabilizer and elevator stay gray, as do the undersides of the wings. And then both sides of the fuselage underneath the wing stay gray. But then from here forward, the wheel well openings forward, that gets, all right, so it stays gray from about here across to the same location on the other side. So roughly, yeah, roughly where this transition from the circular opening to the straight opening is. So that all remains gray, and then the blue comes up the side and over the top. So doing this area along here to the back and at the front down, it makes me nervous because it's supposed to be a soft edge separation line. You don't want a very hard edge, so you can't put the masking tape right there against it. What I intended to do was use the specifically made masking putty. I know that Ammo makes one, and I think there might be one or two other hobby suppliers that make it. I asked on a Facebook group about it, and I've used it before, but silly putty. Apparently silly putty and that masking putty are the same thing, really. So that's what I'm going to use. I've got, I think there's actually 3 or 4 eggs worth of silly putty in this. I bought this a long time ago, specifically for doing this, but I couldn't remember how well it worked, and I couldn't remember if it pulled up paint, so I was a little afraid to go this route, but after asking the question on Facebook and getting the answers I got, I'm not so afraid of using it anymore. I am still nervous because if I don't get this looking the way I want it to, then I got to rework it, and I'm trying to avoid having to do more work. I'm getting closer and closer to being done with this, and I don't want to rush. But if I have to rework it, then that puts me into, a time frame where I'm going to get rushed. And I'm trying to avoid that. So what I'm doing now is I'm masking the undersides of the wings and the horizontal stab. I'm going to mask across here with, this is just packing paper and Tamiya tape. And once I get this pretty well covered, then I'll come in and make some snakes out of the silly putty and run those where I need to mask it going back and then forward. I also have to get the cowl and mask it as well. So, all right, it's prepped and ready. I hope I'm ready. Okay, moment of truth to see how bad it is. I know this corner right here, it was hard to hold this way. I had a glove on, and my grip must have moved, and it moved that mask. So I don't know when it moved it, so we're about to find out just how bad that is. I think everything else went pretty good. So let's see what we got. All right. Oh, peeled up a little bit of paint there. That's okay. We can touch that up if we need to. We may not even need to. That might be worn paint. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of a little bit. I think I got my masking fluid on too heavy. And that paint pulled up from there. threw that piece away. All right, come on. We'll just toss that in the trash underneath the desk. All right. I mean, that's not so bad. That might be a little more worn in some areas than I wanted, but we'll see. Yep, that came off. Now, like I said, I can still touch these areas up. I can hit them with that gray and make them go away. Even under the belly here, I can hit that a little better. All right, yeah, that's not quite exactly what I wanted there, but it'll work, I think. All right, let's get this off. Well, that's the easy way to get that off. Oop. Ooh. Yeah, that did pull off more than I wanted. Alright, so that's going to need a little touch up for sure. I did not want that much of the bare aluminum to show on that. Alright, so. I mean, overall, it's not terrible, but definitely needs touch up. Now the other thing I got to look at is these edges of the wings and tailplane to see if my separation covered everything. Alright, I think the separation there looks good. That looks good. Yeah. Yep, I think we're alright with that. Wingtips look good. Alright, well, okay, so now on the top side, we've also got our chipping fluid, so that's going to have to get worked on, and I'll do that later. Give this a little bit more time to cure out. What is that? All right. Let it cure out a little bit more, and then we'll scrape away the chipping fluid on the top. I'll hit these bottom areas. Yeah, see, that chipping fluid went on a little too heavy. But that can all be touched up for sure. In fact, I might even be able to hit that a little bit. Kind of round that corner out. You see how they're a little uneven side to side? I wanted it, actually, this one should have been a little farther forward toward the trailing edge there. And this should have swooped forward just a little bit before coming back. This one's, it's at the edge, but it's straight down. It should have come in a little more. So hopefully I can still work with all that. All right, I might have got a little bit too light right there, but even that's not terrible. I can work with that. All right, I spent a good amount of time scuffing it, scratching it, getting the wear on the paint to show. I'm very happy with how this has turned out. I did spray, touched up those corners a little bit. I might need to hit that again. There seems to be just a bit of a hard edge, and then some of these soft edges are a little too soft. So I'm probably gonna have to address that again before I'm done. I sprayed, there were a couple areas where more of the gray came off than I wanted to with the masking tape. So I hit those again and cleaned it up a little bit. I still need to wipe it down. I use a cocktail stick, a wooden toothpick, to do all this. So dip it in the water, then run it along whatever edge, let the water sit there for a few moments, and come back through and scratch into it, and it pulls that paint away. And you can see it did exactly what I wanted it to do. So there's some of the aluminum silver underneath, and then you've got that zinc chromate green on top of it. So very little of the silver is showing through the bare aluminum, and more of the zinc chromate. So that's perfect. That is exactly what I wanted. And then I used the side of the toothpick wetted and rubbed it over some of these raised rivets to give them some wear. And you can faintly see the zinc chromate green kind of showing through on that. Yeah, anyway, so that turned out really, really good in my opinion. The cowl, same thing with the cowl. I think it looks very well worn, weathered. I need to do a little bit of touch up on this canopy that I shot. Pulled a little bit too much of the blue and zinc away from the frame, but I can do that with a brush, a hand brush. I didn't mix any colors, so it's straight out of the bottle, so matching colors won't be an issue. So that'll be easy. What else have I got here? I did the wheel covers. So they've got some fading paint on them. Horizontal stab. It's a little bit hard to tell, but this right here is an oval shaped access panel for the linkage to the trim tab. So I scraped away the paint on it, and I don't know. I may put paint back on that because it doesn't have any of the zinc underneath it, so it doesn't show as well. The one on the bottom side is a little bit more subdued, but you can tell that it's worn a little bit with the paint. But then around the edges of the trim tabs, just very lightly I scratched away, because that is a hinge. There's a piano hinge line there, and then the edges of the surface may wear. Now, if I'm not mistaken though, the actual control surfaces, horizontal stab, rudder, and ailerons, are fabric covered. So I might still need to come back and do some paint detail on those to give them more of that fabric look. But we'll look into that in a little bit. So what I need to do now is clean it up good. The cockpit area, I pulled off the masked canopy, and I never did paint this surround into the cockpit, so I need to paint that, and I will brush paint it first with the aluminum, let that cure out real good, and then come back with some zinc chromate green, and then a flat black up here, and then the blue, the medium blue along the edges, and then get a little bit of that to chip off and fade away. There's another piece that goes right at the front of the glare shield, which is actually part of the glare shield. I have to install that still. That's a flat black, but I don't know. I think it just looks awesome, and it may not show up as well on the camera, but I'm telling you, right here in front of me, it looks exactly like I was hoping it would. And then once all that painting is done, we can start on decals, decals, potato,